We're very excited that you're here today, and thank you, all of you, for joining us. We're also have joining us today, Marcy Ellison from Outerbridge, Vice President, Ellison Travel and Tours Canada. Woo! Welcome. And Alex Urdaneta, President of Viajes A+ Puerto Rico. Great to see you again. And we also have Paul Belanche, Director of G-Trek Global Travel Alliance. Welcome. We're so excited that you're here. So let's kick off with a few questions. How does that sound? All right, so maybe let's start with an overview of how the state of travel is in your area. Who wants to kick us off? Alex, what's the state of travel?
Sure, absolutely, Corinne. It is so great to see you. Last time I saw you, you were competing in our fantastic Olympics here in Puerto Rico.
That is correct, and I just want to say, you know, there was some cheating happening there. Okay.
There were. Oh, I didn't know.
But it's fine. I will win next time.
Yeah,
just kidding.
I'm sure you will.
Great to
Corinne,
see you.
Thank you for the. Great to see you too. Here in Puerto Rico, most of the safety and health protocol are still in place. Social distancing, limited capacity in some of the establishment. Of course, you need to show proof of negative test or vaccination when you get to the airport. But the good news is that attractions and sites are open with limited capacity, of course. There's always options for students that can see and learn about nature, history, and culture here in the island. New attractions, for example, the new biking zip line or zip bike at Toro Verde. As recent as last weekend, the new entertainment district opened with more opportunities. So we have seen more and more students groups since last spring enjoying every corner of the island. I mean, we don't have a corner. We just have an endless paradise along the coastline of the Puerto Rico. So hotels are generating more demand than 2 years ago. We have seen higher rates of the recovery for the industry of tourism in Puerto Rico, but we have not reached the pre-pandemic rates. We are promoting the development of tourism in a safe, healthy, and responsible way, emphasizing the importance of following the protocols. Airlines volume has declined a little bit, but with more safety in travel, we expect an increase in seat capacity and volume overall. Nevertheless, we have seen an increase in capacity of almost 8% compared with 2017, which is the year where we had that terrible storm and hurricane. So we're open to business and we're happy to receive more and more students here.
Alex, it's so great to hear that. I appreciate your perspective on that and hearing what's going on in Puerto Rico, and that there's been so much in place to follow protocols, new adventures, and let's get our students over there and having a great time. Thank you for that. So as we move forward and we move towards this path of recovery, what would you say is the biggest change in your business? Using that idea of using chaos to our advantage, how have you responded? How have you used this chaos to your advantage? Marcy, would you like to give us some insights from there?
Sure, absolutely, Corinne. Thank you. And I'll actually say I remember meeting you in Puerto Rico as well. But I also know you like to climb mountains, and Canada's waiting for you. There's a border is open, so please come and visit us. But yes, I think as far as this change and the path to recovery, you know, it's everything has changed. But it has provided us an opportunity to reflect. We've really just had to turn our businesses inside and out, and that's chaotic.
Yeah.
But I think it's also the greatest gift because it's really allowed us to work in our business, work on our business, not in our business, and say, why did we do things this way, or how could we do it better? And then just look at where those opportunities lie for improvement.
I mean, I think that's so valuable for all of us. You know, as you know, I coach CEOs around the world on this idea of thriving in chaos. And that's been the big conversation of really right now slowing down to go fast again, really looking at all the things that we've learned over these 18 months and the things that have really worked that we can continue to implement. And also, what are some things that maybe we needed to change anyway that wasn't super fun being forced into changing them, but pretty great experience to have it, the opportunity, if we want to look at it like that. So thanks for your perspective on that. So Adele, in what ways has the pandemic caused you to pivot or alter your operations that you found you'll continue to utilize in the future? So what are some cool things that you have created during this time that you want to keep implementing as we move forward?
Sure, great question, Corinne. Well, like everyone, we had to kind of almost take apart and deconstruct what we were doing, and dealing primarily with international travel. One of the things we found that we completely changed are things like our terms and conditions. You kind of have a set of terms and conditions you use for a while, and then something comes like this, and you look at it and think, actually, yeah, why did we do it like that? This wasn't necessarily the best way for the customer, and it wasn't necessarily the most flexible for our suppliers. So let's relook at that and do it again. So that's one of the things that we spent quite a lot of time going over, is making our terms and conditions flexible. And then the other thing we've looked at is creating a hub for itinerary information and information on the destinations, up-to-date links to what is happening in different European countries, because obviously there's 28 countries or so, and they all have different rules. So creating one point where we, as much as our clients, can also access all that information live. And so providing that kind of support is something we've done a bit of before, but actually now just making that much more part of what we do. So helping things be more flexible, speed up lead-in times, that kind of thing. These are all the changes that we've made.
Great. I love to hear that. Paul, what about you? What have you implemented, maybe that you were sort of forced into implementing during these times, that now is turned into a great advantage that you're excited to keep utilizing?
Yeah, thanks. And I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, but being out here in Montana and hearing you like mountains, we're welcoming you out here as well.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, a couple of things that we've done that have really been instrumental in helping us get through this and implementing some trips this summer is it's created the opportunity to develop new partnerships and to seek out new areas to go visit. When we still want to go to some of these places, maybe our standard attractions or sites aren't open to the capacity that we want them to, and it forced us to find some alternative routes and alternative plans, and those have turned out to be great successes. And so it's really kind of flipping the switch for some of our group leaders to decide, hey, this seems like something new that we might want to do, and kind of dispersing some of our business to other places. And I think one other thing that's been really helpful, and it's something that we've always taken a lot of pride in, as far as communications with our group leaders and administrators and having strong partnerships. I think if anything, this pandemic has strengthened those partnerships even more. We've really emphasized the need to be very clear, open, honest communication, not only with school administrators and principals and group leaders and teachers, but also with the travelers and their families as well. And keeping them up to date, much to what Adele was referring to as well. Things are changing constantly. So what do these protocols, what does this mean for your specific trip to your specific destination? And I see us carrying that forward into the future as well.
That's such great information. And I think, really speaking to what Brian was sharing in the keynote presentation of, sometimes we can't use the same tools that we were using before. We need new keys to unlock these ideas. And so it's really exciting, even for me, for those of you who don't know, I also run a nonprofit where I run travel trips around the world. And obviously the pandemic did put my medical trips on hold as well, and very chaotic for me. And I think what's been very interesting was seeing, our other partners are starting to get back on the map, and I'm watching on Facebook and feeling sort of this pressure of, oh my gosh, should I be doing this? Are we not doing that? And I know a lot of us have felt those pressures of, wait, how are they doing this? Why am I not doing this? And I think there's a real value of talking about these new partnerships, these new ideas. And, when the hurricane hit in Louisiana, Hurricane Laura, I have a medical training team that has spent all of their time in Africa. Never were we a team that went and did disaster relief during hurricanes, but we pivoted because my team still wanted to be of value, still wanted to provide assistance. And having to go out and create those new partnerships was challenging, but what a benefit for the future. We now have a wing of our organization that is disaster relief, disaster response teams, because not all of my clients want to go all the way overseas or have the time to do that. So some of these new partnerships and these new ideas that have been created out of this is so exciting. But I think we got to touch on this subject that always comes up for all of us. And we keep talking about this returning to normal, and everyone's really excited about it. But this idea of safety and how we make people feel comfortable around this idea of safety, what is sort of your ideas on, the safety implications of how you're going to get people to feel comfortable to jump on board with that? So returning back to normal, you're dealing with, not only the parents, the students, the school board, and everyone in between. What are some of the things? I would love to hear just a quick snippet from each of you, because you're all in such different parts of the world and country. What are you doing that will help us and help others know what to do to address these sort of safety concerns to help make people feel more comfortable? Adele, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, safety is obviously the most important thing. And so for us, we recently were awarded the World Travel and Tourism Council Safe Travel Stamp, which is for companies that apply certain health and safety protocols. And that's important for us, not just to have the stamp, but because of the process to go through to make sure that we are talking to our suppliers, talking to our clients about the risk. It's a bit like Brian said again earlier in the speech this morning, that our job is to minimize the risk as much as possible. We can't remove it, and it's minimizing it and communicating what that risk is, and allowing people to make their decisions about what they want to do. So those are the key things that we've been working on. Great, thank you. How about for you, Alex? What's making a difference?
I'm with Adele. I just want to add that we also need to provide the information that traveling can be safe now and always, but we must make it safe. So when I say we mean that we form our groups. The health and safety is a responsibility for everyone, including the individuals who go on the trips. We have not worked for our clients who don't respect these protocols, the safety and health.
Great. Thank you. Marcy, how about for you?
Well, I would say for us, we completed the Certified Student Travel Organization accreditation through SYTA and the Center for Student Travel Safety. So that is something that we felt would really just take what we were already doing to a next level. And it was a fantastic experience. And it's something that, we know will build trust with our clients. And it also involved not only implementing our crisis plan or in evolving it, we also ran a desktop simulation. So that is a nice approach to give confidence to our team as well for handling things in the future. So that gave us this chance to do this certification, which we may not have been able to do quite so quickly. So that was fantastic. And like Adele, we also were appointed the Safe Travel Stamp. And that's very helpful to help us make sure we're on the same page with all of our vendors and share that with our clients. And finally, we really, we've developed a safe travels team. So we've taken, who are typically working in safety in our company and made a team that's being led by our VP and co-owner, Michelle Bronco. She has a master's in public health, and we've been able to really use that to develop some internal systems and then update our website and keep that up to date as things are evolving. And we've also pre-recorded some sessions and presentations that we can share with our clients. And especially if we need to do something virtual, we have some presentations ready to go.
That's awesome. That's so helpful. So Paul, what about for you? How are you really addressing, maybe the parents directly? Is there something that you're doing that, it's great to provide this information, always having these credibility factors with these certifications and these stamps, critical. We know how important those things are. But, you talk a lot about the relationships that you build, and what is the communication to the parents, especially as we're seeing this increase in the Delta variant? And, how is that impacting moving forward? Are people wanting more or different information with this?
That's a great question. And I would just have to second what Adele, Alex, and Marcy had to say. I think all those are great recommendations. And I think when communicating directly with parents or school administrators, I think where a lot of those questions dwell is something that Marcy had just brought up about risk management. We too recently completed the third-party review of our risk management policies that the CSTO provides. It was a tremendous asset. I often will say to, I'm an educator, I'm a travel expert, but really when you're in the student travel industry, we're risk managers. You can never, even pre-pandemic, control all the things that may come up throughout a trip. And so in order for us to guarantee safety and to have a good safety record, you really have to know how to manage risk. And COVID's just added another complicated layer to that. And so I can't say enough on what it means to have an emergency backup team, and then also to have a risk management and policy that's not just in-house, but that's been also reviewed by a third party. That seems to give a lot of solace and comfort to folks. It's oversimplified, but dealing with a twisted ankle is not too far off from dealing with what happens if somebody gets the flu or COVID on a trip. And that's where your risk management kind of comes into play.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that's how I became someone who's great at talking about thriving in chaos, by leading travel teams around the world for most of my career. But I think, like I was sharing, of really talking about what is the actual threat in this moment? What are we dealing with in this moment? So we are dealing with the Delta variant. That's real. And so I would love to hear from all of you of how is it impacting your current travel plans? Have you seen an increase in, fear or questions? Maybe just speak to a little bit of the actual moment right now. What are you dealing with currently? Adele, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully I can give a bit of a message of hope in this, because we were hit in the UK by the Delta variant a few months ago. So we're a little bit ahead, I think, of where you guys in North America are at the moment. And we had our third peak already in July, and we're coming down the other side of it. So we currently have 75% of our adult population double vaccinated, which has massively helped that. And our hospitalizations are relatively low. So what I would say from a position here in Europe is that travel throughout Europe is possible. There are the obvious checks. Do you have the vaccination? Have you got a negative test? Those type of things at the borders. But essentially, we are hoping very much that we have had our peak and we're coming down the other side. And so I genuinely hope that is a situation that maybe gives some optimism to what you guys are having there, that the peak went really quickly. And as I said, fingers crossed we keep going back down that curve again.
Good. Well, we're so happy to hear that from that side of the pond. But Alex, what are you experiencing in Puerto Rico? Thank you, Adele, truly.
Well, thank you, Corinne. In Puerto Rico, people were more confident about traveling before the new variant. So now according to the last Friday's report, we have almost 71% of people vaccinated, 1 or 2 doses. And most of our destinations for students are looking pretty good. But some of our concerns are school communities will continue to postpone their trips if the students haven't gotten the vaccine or they don't otherwise feel safe. And for example, if a border closure may occur, and that causes the students and the passengers to be able to reach the destination. We also have a concern that some of the destinations are not prepared or have the same standards that have some of the states in the U.S. And we're also looking for those options we might have to offer to groups of students 12 years old who don't have access to a vaccine today. So we're seeing all these concerns not only from our perspective, but also from teachers and principals.
Good. That's helpful to hear. What about Canada? What are you experiencing there with this Delta variant and the concerns of different variants?
Yes, so I think in Canada, we were a little bit slow on the uptake with the vaccines, but now we've moved ahead very quickly with 81% of our adult population. So anyone over the age of 12 has a single dose, and right around 70% with 2 doses. So that means that, the summer has been quite fluid, movement around the country has been quite good, and confidence is high from that perspective.
Good.
However, of course, yes, the Delta variant has started. We're a bit more at the beginning as opposed to Del at the end. But what we're hearing is that it will be something will happen. It will be quickly over with. And as far as our school groups, they're on vacation still for 2 more weeks in summer vacation. So we're not having a real direct access to find out the school's feeling, but we're thinking that it will be short-lived and then more of a business as usual season with at least travel within Canada.
Great. I mean, the hope just sounds great. And seeing from what Adele is sharing, we have been tracking always a lot from your experiences. So, Paul, I have a different question for you, because we know the national parks are seeing record attendance. How is this impacting the student travel market now? And what do you wish operators knew? What do operators really need to know right now about students and the national parks?
Oh, that's a great question, and you're exactly right. I'm really focused on the Rocky Mountains in the West and the national parks of the West, all the way from Grand Canyon all the way up to Glacier, and they are crowded. The national parks have always been crowded, and have always been especially crowded during peak season. What's surprising about this year is that, they're still crowded. And we have really not many foreign visitors, which usually make up 15 to 70% of the visitors. The other thing that's surprising is that for most of this last year, up until June, and I would say even through most of June and July, there's been tour operators were not able to operate at full capacity. And so there were no tour buses in the national parks up until at least June. And even those tour operators that are working in some of these national parks right now, they have some pretty stringent COVID requirements. And that information you can find on the national parks website. And those are universal across all the national parks. So that's something interesting to know about, is that it does impact your group sizes and some things like that. With all of that said, I personally was able to be a part of student travel groups to Grand Canyon, Zion, Yellowstone, Grand Teton, and Glacier National Parks this last summer, and with great success. And I think there's a handful of things that everybody should keep in mind when visiting the national parks moving into this the rest of this year into next year. And some of this information is based on our experience, but also comes directly from the National Park Service. They agree. Actually, I was creating my list and went to the National Park Service, and I was like, wow, their recommendations are kind of following along with mine. One of those is that every state has its own set of rules, and they vary dramatically. Think about Yellowstone National Park. You're going to visit Yellowstone, you'll probably travel through Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. Every state's going to have its own requirements. Right. From park to park, policies are changing. And not everything in the parks are going to be open. Last June, you didn't even know if a public restroom was going to be open. You didn't know if a restaurant was going to be open. So you really got to check and work on the websites and maybe make a few extra phone calls. Really is interesting is that every town and local business is operating differently. And it's really important to be mindful of those little small communities that border these national parks. They welcome our business and they want our business back. But they're also struggling a little bit. They're a bit stressed. They really are capitalizing on this demand and coming back to business, but there also is a big hiring shortage. They're having a hard time finding people to clean the hotel rooms, to clean the bathrooms and things like that. So, being really mindful of the locals, do your due diligence, call ahead, find out what's open, things like that. Couple really quick, one last one is that, don't forget about the neighboring areas. The national parks are really the focus. Again, I'll use Yellowstone as an example. It's 2.2 million acres, but the larger greater Yellowstone ecosystem is 22 million acres. And that includes endless national forest public lands, state parks public lands, And then lots of private vendors. So kind of back to one of the comments I made earlier, is like, find new partners. If you think the parks are going to be overcrowded, have a plan B. And that plan B could be something that is still going to meet the objectives of your trip, but may not just be exactly what you had in mind for that opportunity.
Paul, truly, that it's so, it's so helpful to hear those ideas, especially around this idea of adaptability and also about really being patient and honoring the situation that the entire world is facing. This idea of the shortages of staff is very real in every aspect. Having, building into our agendas these schedules that need to be able to be changed, or that we may need extra buffers here and there because certain things aren't open or we can only have certain people at certain times. But I really loved your point about really thinking about and being mindful about the situation. There isn't anyone that's void of this. Everyone is having this experience in some shape or form. And if it's their business exploding, it's equally as chaotic and frustrating as much as it is of being very challenged. So thank you for bringing that to the point of here in these national parks, because what an incredible opportunity, but also to expand into these outer surrounding areas. Oh, it's amazing. And which probably will really help expand even more awareness and probably some preservation too of our parks as well. So thank you for that. Now, let's talk just for a moment then about the international travel. So what do attendees really need to know about getting students traveling abroad at this point? I mean, obviously we know some of the basics of the testing and things like that, but from your perspective, what do you wish people knew? How about, let's start with you, Alex.
Corinne, I think the most important thing is to know that the experience is definitely different and that each country uses different criteria and protocols. We need to follow the information that we receive from other sources. I mean, the Student and Youth and Travel Association has done a great job. And we need to also very closely watch the various requirements around the globe through the CDC and other sources. The key has always been preparation and information. Great. The more prepared we are, the more confident we will travel. The itineraries, of course, they must be adjusted to the new reality, and communication must be assertive. I personally have been out of the country 3 times, North Africa, Europe, and Central America, and protocols are the keys as well.
It's great. I love that idea of the preparation, and the information. That is so fantastic. How about for you, Marcy? What are you thinking? What do you wish we knew?
I mean, one thing I'll mention a bit still specific to Canada is that our borders are opening. As I said, it's safe. There's a high level of vaccination. As of August 6th, the U.S. land border was opened for inbound visitors from the United States. And we're still waiting for the reciprocal invite. Maybe you can work on that, Corinne.
I'll get right to it.
But that's coming, I think, hopefully on the 21st of August. And then on September 7th, if we are meeting the standards that we want for health targets and so on, then we would be open for international travel as of September 7th. So that would be something I would say I would want people to know. That would be the main thing right now for Canada.
Great. Thank you for that. And Adele, anything else that we need to know about Europe? What do you wish we knew?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. One is, I think if groups are traveling internationally, this is a really good time to find a really good local partner, wherever you're going in the world, actually, not just to Europe. It's always been really important, but I think particularly for the current situation where things can change so quickly, having somebody local on the ground is really important. And SYTA has lots of international members who can help with that. I would also say, a little bit in line with what Paul was saying, groups can think a little bit more flexibly than perhaps they did before. Maybe they can think about a different destination. There's, again, using Europe as an example, there are many different places. Perhaps think about Belgium instead of France, or Portugal instead of Spain, where perhaps it's a little quieter if groups are worried about lots of crowds in Paris, for instance. And in that, I'd also say that traditionally, international travel has been very long lead-in, typically 18 months to a year in advance. We'd be getting the request for international travel, and now I think people are learning, actually, you can do it in a couple of months if you really want to, pending the airlines, but certainly ground services can be put together very quickly, especially in this new age of ultra flexible contracts. So those are things to think about, I think.
It's so great. I just love this idea of adaptability, flexibility, patience, and it's this desire. I just feel this huge desire of wanting to really provide and get back out there, and really it's ready. Like, let's do it. So is there any other last thoughts that you would like to leave our attendees with? Anything else that you'd like to share? Maybe a word or thought, anything you'd like to leave them with.
I guess I'll start off. I'll say, yeah, it's exciting to be back to traveling, and I think we're in a much, much better place than we were a year ago, even with the Delta variant and the things going on. And it's been a blessing to be out in the West in the national parks out here where there's lots of open spaces. So come on out and pay us a visit.
It's great. Anyone else? Last
Yeah, I just want to, I'm sorry. I just want to share, Corinne, that among all these changes, I have found that on a personal level, the changes I think have been inside of each of us to find time to be better and to do things even better, to understand better that reflect the challenges that the human being has right now.
Yeah.
So that is challenges. We can continue our mission to positively impact the lives of young people and children through travel.
Absolutely. Thank you. Marcy?
You know, I was reading a book and it was talking about basically just the bottom line being the worst has kind of happened, and there's some peace in waking up in the morning to know that, you know, you've been through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not over, but we are on the other side, and that is gives us something to move forward with, to say, okay, we've seen it. It's not as scary now. We've lived it, and now let's keep moving. So.
Awesome. Absolutely. Adele, final thoughts for that? Thank you.
Yeah, they're all great comments. I think I'll just end with partnerships. We are all in this together, and the way out of it will be together. So I'll finish with that.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone for your insight and expertise as we navigate what the future of student travel looks like.